let's get going. The topic of our webinar today is everything has changed. What's next for technology? So it's been a pretty crazy 3 months, hasn't it, Jermaine?
Oh, yeah. Cold turkey is one of the ways you could describe it for me, but it's been pretty crazy. It's been pretty crazy going from a everyday meeting, driving everywhere and having a good time to working. And my commute is shortened significantly. I save a lot of time. I save a lot of time now. It's been interesting.
Hey, I should probably introduce you and maybe myself. So Jermaine, who is the good-looking gentleman on the left of me, if I look at my screen, he's either on the left or the right of your screen. Jermaine is Techify's Director of Intelligent Technology Consulting and works very closely with our clients to give them guidance and technology strategy around dealing with all sorts of things technology. And you've been pretty busy over the last 3 months, haven't you?
Yeah. Thank you for that introduction. I think it's one of two things. Our clients have seen and or heard from me more in the last 3 months than they would have over the last year. Just because, we try to space things out and there's always schedule conflicts. But I think in the last 3 months, I do probably double the amount of meetings and webinars and trainings now that I did in the past. So it's been really busy, really busy.
Awesome. So, and just as a sign of things changing, my name, of course, is Brendan Howe. I'm the CEO here at Techify. As a sign of how things have changed, I'm here in the office. We actually have 3 people in the office here, Jermaine. It's a busy day in the office.
Wow, we're almost at capacity there.
Yeah, they're all socially distanced, of course. Jermaine, where are you working from? It looks like you're working on a beach somewhere.
Well, this particular beach is in New Zealand, but really I'm working about 3 meters from where I typically sleep. So I'm at home, been working at home for almost 4 months straight now, because we did a dry run to test out all of our equipment and make sure everybody was comfortable working from home. We actually never went back to the office.
And it's been working great. And it's interesting. If I look at the poll results from everybody that's on the call, we're seeing interesting. There's only very few people say no one's going to be working remotely 6 months from now. Some people are going to have everybody working remotely. There's a lot of 50% or people coming and going with a new work from home policy.
Nice.
It's probably not that surprising, right? So
definitely not.
Here's the environment, right? Everything's changed. It's weird. We now go to parks and we're told to stay 3 geese lengths away from people. Like we're living in a.
That's truly Canadian.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if you're in Florida or Arizona that you have to stay 3 geese lengths away from people, but we definitely have to. Just a quick housekeeping note. We're probably going to go about 45 minutes or so in this webinar. There is a Q&A pane, so please put your questions into the Q&A, and we'll, as we go through, we'll either answer them as we go through the webinar, or we'll come back to them at the end. We have a bunch of polls. We're interested in what everybody else is thinking. Like, we're finding that the feedback and the interaction with business leaders throughout what's going on is fascinating, because we're all sort of navigating new terrain here, right? And we wanted to sort of kind of take that context of everything's changed, and we're dealing with an environment now where people are working way differently. There's way more productivity challenges. There's, we have this, like we're trying to work and we're all getting distracted. You and I both have kids. We've both had situations where we've been on calls and our kids come barging in, and
hence the background. Definitely the reason for the background, as this is a co-office space. Goes from 2 years old to 45.
And this is why I'm in the office today. I think it would be a little bit bad if I was running a webinar today and all of a sudden my kids.
Well, I mean, it would be really good for the webinar. It would demonstrate exactly what we're trying to say here. Like, this is what the new workspace looks like, right? Does our
Yeah.
technology play a part in that? Like, are we going to have to buy new straps for our kids? You know, what are we going to do here?
Well, listen, I don't know about the kid piece, but definitely there's some trends that we're seeing, and we're going to talk about them today. We're going to talk about 4 key trends. And I think the other piece that is sort of the other context piece that's key here is there's a lot more pressure that people are having on margins, cost control, and as a result,
Yeah.
efficiency, right? Like,
Yeah.
you hear that sort of stuff from our clients?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it from a perspective of having to make that huge shift in a small frame, having a lot of uncertainty around who you can shake hands with, or you know, if you see somebody walking by too close, should you be rude and run away? But really working from changing that work frame and how everybody's working and making sure that your company is strong throughout that process has driven everyone that I've spoken to so far to think about, well, how am I going to make sure that I cost control, build efficiencies, and what do I need to do with what I have already without adding any expenditure to it.
Yeah, and I think what it's leading people to do is really look across the board and say, hey, we're not focusing on technology less. People are focusing on technology more. Like, it's a huge strategic driver. Like, obviously for years, it's been a strategic driver for every business, technology, right? But really now, as the environment has changed, it's sort of how do we deal with this, right? How do we use technology better? How do we change our technology strategy? And how do we deal with stuff? So let's talk about our 4 key trends.
Do you mind if I take the first one before we go ahead on that?
Yeah.
We're gonna throw a poll in there. I love it.
Yeah, let's put a poll up. Why don't we do that? So I'm gonna go let's go to poll number 2. Hold on, maybe I need to share results of poll number 1 first. Okay.
Yeah, let's show everybody what it looks like.
All right, I did a quick share. If you're fast, you would have seen that. Let's see. I've got a new poll up now. So hold on a second. Let's go to poll question number 2. Okay, you know what? Let's fire through. I'm having a little bit of a polling. It's not going to.
Yep, it's up. Well, the first one was up.
Okay.
It's actually showing the answers already. Might want to just rerun it again. In the interim, I see at least one question already coming through on our Q&A section. So we will answer those coming down to the end. But yeah, please keep putting the questions in there, and we'll make sure to review all of them, and we'll have a question answer going. So I see the poll up now.
Okay, why don't we'll relaunch our polling, and we'll start going through the polling questions. So our trend number 1 that we wanted to talk about was our work from anywhere trend.
Work from anywhere.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how that's a trend and what we're seeing across our client base?
Great. Thanks. This one's a big deal for me because in my previous careers, I was always a work from anywhere person. And then coming into working in Techify and in the tech industry, there's been a little bit of both on that as well. But across our client base and for everybody we've spoken to, including some of the vendors we work with, everybody's hours have changed. Everybody's working either more or less, or they're trying to be more engaged with their staff internally, just to make sure that everybody stays on that. And across our client base, we've seen a lot of our clients who had to make that shift in a rush, and really they were able to say, well, some people were back in the office, everybody else was working at a safe distance from home. And that work from anywhere scenario really means, you could be sitting anywhere with a good internet connection and really being as productive as you could be in the brick and mortar setting. And a lot of our clients and a lot of the persons we've actually spoken to in some of the other webinars we've attended ourselves have seen that it is challenging to make sure, to say the least, especially for what it means if you didn't have or if you didn't think about a strong technology strategy prior to everything happening.
Yeah, I think we used to have this kind of romantic version of, hey, look, with new technology we can work from anywhere. And I found this image from a blog, and it was from a few years ago, and it was like, hey, I can work from a beach, and it's very nice. And it was a different type of sentiment. Now we have to be able to work from anywhere, right? We have staff that can't come into the office. We have offices that are not big enough to socially distance. We have to keep our team safe. So work from anywhere, like the stuff that used to be, and Jermaine, maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the stuff that was the nice to haves before.
Yeah, definitely.
It's now not nice to have, it's a must have. What would you
For sure.
put in that list?
Well, I mean, really, from a technology strategy, good things that people would always think was it's really nice to have. Oh, what if I didn't have a server on site and I did all of my applications for my business in the cloud, or it was web based and you can just go to a website and connect in and do your work, or maybe next time I'll have a laptop for people because desktops are fine. Everybody can sit in their office and work. But it would be nice if we all had some webcams, maybe do some calls with each other every now and again. Maybe 2 monitors. Why invest in 2 monitors? You can do fine with one monitor, right? But that productivity level and a few things that we've seen across the board is that, well, now you want to have good internet, so you're going to upgrade your Rogers or your Bell or whoever you work with and get better internet because you want to have that internet connection speed. And I want to be HD when I'm having a meeting on any call. Hopefully, nobody will want to see a grainy picture as we do this webinar, or really any interaction that you're going to have with staff and persons across the board. And other great things that were nice to have in the past that you really need to have right now is why have a phone sitting on a desk with you? Like a phone system tied to your desk, a unified communications platform, hey, the excitement of a soft phone, PBX, right? Really, it's some of those things were nice to have, but now you have to have it to work.
Yeah. So you've touched on a couple of things that are sort of near and dear to my heart. Number one, the phone thing. If anybody has a physical phone on their desk anymore, you're stuck in a different decade. Right? Phone systems are like cable TV. We've moved beyond, right? We consume differently. We expect your staff, your new staff, and the rest of your staff should all expect that when the phone rings, it doesn't matter where they are, right? If they're working from home, if they're working from the office, if they're working from a park or maybe a beach, if you're lucky, that the phone just rings, right? Like I kind of laugh at when I call these businesses that you punch in, you phone and the voicemail has changed, right? The auto attendant's changed, and it said, hey, due to COVID, we're all working from home and yada, yada, yada. Kind of like a lot of people are dealing with. Please leave a message and we'll call you back. We're monitoring voicemail and we're monitoring email. And I listened to that and I'm like, well, what if I was somebody that was trying to buy something? Right? Why can't I just type in that person's extension and get to them? They're working. Why won't their phone system let them get them? And it's a simple thing, point. But it's important, right? So the phone systems are changing, and we're spending a lot of time talking to people about Microsoft Voice, which is integrated with Teams. And it's a great kind of unified communications platform. And we've been our company is on Teams Voice now, and a lot of our clients are moving to it as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. But I mean, Brendan, really though, what would change if we were to say, well, how am I going to access my files and all of this if I'm not, sitting at my desk at work and working the way that I used to? What am I going to do going forward?
Well, the experience that people should expect is that regardless of where somebody's working, they can access all those files. And it just kind of reminds me of like the application question you mentioned, that a lot of people say, well, we can't really work remotely because we have this application, this accounting application, or ERP system, or other what we would call a line of business application that is on premise. And really, if you have an on-premise application or something that is hosted in your office on servers, that's got to be sort of a red flag. You've got to be looking at that as part of your technology strategy and saying, how do we change this? Right?
Well, before we give away too much, maybe we should kind of segue into the next thing. What do you think?
All right. Well, just before I put up our next poll, so I'm looking at the poll answers, and sorry, I've figured out my my issue with the polling. We had about 36% of people say 100% of people are working from home. 36%, so same number, say 75% of people are working from home. 14% is 50, 14% is 25%. 0% has nobody of people on this call has nobody working from home. So let's go to poll number 3. All right. So we should have, do we have poll number 3 showing up?
Haven't seen it yet.
Let's see.
There it is.
There we go. Are you connecting to anything using a VPN? So let's talk about our next trend. While people are answering that question.
Why would that be important as a question though, Brendan? Like, what is that next trend?
Well, you know what? Let me wait. Let's introduce this properly, because I'm going to say something a little bit controversial here.
Oh boy! All right. Should I stop the recording or?
Well, we'll see. We'll see how controversial it gets. Okay. So trend number 2 that we're seeing is people want to use the stuff that they're already paying for, right? So using the applications that they're already paying for. Usually, we're finding the majority of people in business are in a Microsoft world. There's a bit of the Google Cloud as well, but vast majority of people are working in the Microsoft Cloud. And we hear time and time again, hey, we have all these applications available to us, but we're using kind of email, maybe a little bit of Teams, a little bit of SharePoint or OneDrive, but not much. But if you log into the Microsoft portal, so you just log into web-based, like, look at all these applications. Like, there's crazy stuff. So like, there's this Power Apps thing and Power Automate, and
So this is all already there in your portal?
Yeah. And guess how much it would cost to use any of these applications that are showing up here?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm going to go ahead and say that you've got like 18, 20 things on there easily. You must be paying a little bit extra for that.
Nope.
These are all included.
Yeah. So for all these businesses out there that you're saying, okay, how do we get people working more efficiently? How do we do more with less? How do we drive higher productivity? How do we drive better security? There's all these applications, and I'm not even showing all of them, right?
Well, yeah, that's true. Actually, you're only hovering over what you have in Office 365 as opposed to all apps. I mean, we use a ton of other apps. I mean, if we're looking at Planner, and there are quite a few third-party apps that Microsoft votes against, that they've given the vote to work with their Teams platform and SharePoint as well, which isn't actually showing up here. But I guess they all are integratable, and you don't need to pay any extra for it because it's included with your licensing.
Yeah. So what does this mean for technology strategy? Well, let's talk about VPN. Let's come back. Here's maybe the most controversial part of what we're going to talk about today. So 67% of people on this call are using VPN. So here's what we're going to talk about. It's time to end VPN. It's time to get rid of VPN connections. It's time to get rid of having to click on that little icon, and maybe sometimes your Mac drives don't show up, or maybe it's slower, or you change your password and all of a sudden you forget that you've changed your password, so you can't log in. all those productivity challenges and frustration that comes with VPN. It's time to change that, Jermaine. What do you think?
So, well, I mean, I don't know. This is a bit heavy for 10:21 in the morning. But yeah, I'm ready to go forward. I'll put on my security blanket and get ready.
Okay, so here's the thinking. So VPN technology is really based on technology from the 1990s. So I recorded a short video recently that we're going to put up on our YouTube channel, which if you haven't subscribed, you should definitely subscribe. And it talks about how the foundational, like the technology that people are using when you're using a VPN was originally invented in the 90s. And it was something called Active Directory that was part of the Windows NT system. Windows NT came out, and then Windows Server and client-server computing came out. And so we're talking about technology that's 25 years old or more, right? And VPN is sort of a bolt-on of, well, there's Active Directory, and then there's a firewall, and then we need to communicate between the two of them, and it's like bolt-on, bolt-on, bolt-on. And if you've ever used VPN and it hasn't worked reliably, it's because it's sort of bolt-on.
That is quite annoying. That is quite annoying too. I mean, just trying to, from a productivity standpoint, you really want to be active and working, and having an additional thing to do during that process, especially if and when it doesn't work, is definitely a bit of a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the time has come to get rid of file servers, to get rid of domain controllers. I have yet to speak to a business owner that really wants to buy another server. If we can no longer buy servers, no longer spend, you know, 10, 20, 30, $40,000 on servers, that'd be awesome. And how are we, like, we're moving a bunch of our clients in this direction. How are we moving? Like, what's the kind of stuff, Jermaine, that we're doing to get people out of the VPN world and into some more modern technology?
Well, really, Brendan, I mean, you're putting me in a tough spot here. I mean, to say get rid of VPN and get rid of servers is a bit of a challenge, especially because, well, there's a transition. Some clients will always require to have some form of physical presence at their organization or company because they have some special historical application or a specialized thing that was built for them that sits there, that isn't cloud-based. But really, though, there are two schools of thought here. There is a huge percentage of our clients and people that we work with that really don't need that, because their applications like the Microsoft Cloud or G Suite or any of the things that you use, those productivity things are in the cloud. Somebody else is hosting it, and by cloud I mean their data center, so they buy the servers and put it somewhere else. But really, it gives you a chance to, you can move to something like SharePoint with Azure Active Directory. You can utilize Teams for all your video calls and everything. You've got forms, ways to find, get and retrieve information. But really, even as a training platform, you can use something like Microsoft Stream for Teams training. And all of that will be useful for a lot of our clients. But the vast majority, I would say probably about 75%. And we have been working with our clients to make sure that they understand what it is first. We've had a few seminars, we've done some training on site with Microsoft as well, but we're working towards that and encouraging that move for the clients that it's applicable to.
Well, and we've had examples with clients where, hey, there's manual processes, there's paper being used, and we can eliminate those manual and paper-based processes in that duplication just with the applications that we're paying for.
Right, but then you raise another issue here now, right? A VPN, really, the core reason for that bolt-on was to make sure that people were working safely, right? And now you're going to take a bunch of all of your company data and everything and put it somewhere else under somebody else's control where you can't see the physical server that it's sitting on. And now it opens up a whole different challenge. Like, what are you going to do about the security around that?
Well, let's just, maybe we should ask what people think about security.
All right. Oh, another poll. Wow, we're really going ham on these polls. I like it.
So we've got another poll question that we've just logged here. What are you most concerned about with security? And you can choose more than one answer here. This is a multiple guess or multiple choice question.
kind of all you can eat. So, wow. So, okay, well, let's give everybody a little bit of time to really click through those.
Yeah, and while we have people answering that poll question there, I see the answers are starting to come in. Let's talk about trend number 3. So cybersecurity is now more important. It's more
Wow.
important than ever. So
It's
Jermaine,
almost like we thought about this stuff before we did this presentation.
let's talk about what's the context of this. What do we see it out in the field?
Well, realistically, we've just gone. If we were to think back to the 90s, since we're already on the 90s binge here, um, like the higher risk levels that we've seen already, even over time before the COVID scenario hit, we've had increased risk of security through email phishing, whaling, exposure through malware, exposure through direct contact, even machines and equipment being stolen. Um, and there's so many more scams and things out there that are damaging not only to the reputations of the companies, but to the companies themselves that have shut down so many companies as well. And people are more distracted now, more susceptible, because you're sitting in front of a computer screen all day. There's no way you're going to be able to filter through and really pay as much attention to every single email that's coming through. And sooner or later, you're going to click on something and that's what's been happening. That will be adverse for your organization. You're going to think you're going to the Amazon web page, or somebody sent you a OneNote document. You go type your password in there, and all of a sudden, you've got a problem. And that's now increased because you're not in your office space. Your local area network is not secured by your firewall or whatever security you have at that location. But now you're dependent on everybody's home internet, and their computers being accessible to open and accessible to really anyone in their household. Not necessarily maliciously, but can you imagine the cat walks on your keyboard with your email open, and all of a sudden you send your VP or your director or your CEO or your client an email which is all just QWERTY. So it's
So
interesting.
let me add a couple other things that we've kind of see. I always like to start with this quote when I'm talking about security, and
Good
just
quote.
it's one of my favorite quotes. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, all these big companies are doing this fantastic work to really make artificial intelligence available to everybody, democratize it, right? There's this powerful technology that we can use, and all businesses and organizations, we can all use and tap into this great technology because it's been democratized, right? We don't have to invest millions or billions of dollars, but the challenge with this is the hackers can tap into this technology too, and they are. And so they're tapping into this technology to automate all sorts of scams. So we've seen all sorts of COVID scams, maps that are infected with malware, spoofed websites. You talked about phishing attacks a little bit. We've seen whaling or spearing type of attacks.
Yeah.
And here's an example, sort of simple example, the gift card scam, right? Looks like the CEO is sending an email and saying, hey, can you buy a few gift cards and send them along to me? And it looks like the CEO, you have distracted people, and they're not really focused. And look, I can tell you, this week, even amongst our team, I had a member of our team that got one of these emails and reached out to me just to make sure, right? And they're getting so good at this that unless you look really closely to see Sally Jones's email, that it's sjones1234@aol.com as opposed to at your company, everything else looks like a regular email. And the artificial intelligence, it creates, like, they've programmed in being angry and short and sort of, so if you reply back, it would reply back right away saying, do it now, come on.
Wow. That's pretty sophisticated for an attack.
Yeah, and then you get into bigger, more concerning stuff like wire fraud, and the risks are bigger now, right? More people, as you said, more people are working from home. They're more distracted, and we've seen, like, there's a story of somebody that was in a business group that I was in, and they ended up wiring $70,000 to a hacker.
Whoa.
And it was because their email account got compromised. And then the hacker sent an email. It looked like a supplier that they'd been emailing back and forth with, and they'd sent an email saying, "Hey, we're going to send you a check for $70,000." And then an hour later, an email comes in and said, "Hey, because it's COVID, don't send a check. Wire it to this bank account." And so they wired it to the bank account. Right.
Wow. And what are some of the things though? I mean, really, how can you, if you're looking at an email chain, it started out correctly and then the email account's compromised, what are some of the things that we would have in a tech strategy that we would want to indicate to our constituents here that might help prevent something like this?
Well, here's one of the ways that we deal with trend number 3, our cybersecurity trend, is it used to be kind of a nice to have, maybe to use 2-factor or multi-factor authentication. It's not a nice to have anymore. You got to do it. Is it a bit of a pain in the butt for every once in a while for a member of your team have to look at their phone and approve a sign-in? Yeah. But it'll stop so many different scams, so many different hacks, right? So at a very least, your Microsoft email needs to be protected through multi-factor authentication. Listen, like we got hundreds of things that we can do to protect people from security threats, but we just wanted to talk about a couple key ones here, right?
Right. Yeah.
And,
yeah.
and so what you're seeing up on the screen, this is the Microsoft Authenticator app up on the screen, right, Jermaine?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and this is what happens. Do you want to explain to people a little bit about like how it works with our email, with our company, and how the Microsoft Authenticator app works?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple of things that they thought about when doing this. Is you want to be able to have a second way to verify who you are. So, everybody's been doing it for years. I really don't understand the pushback in what we've seen from some of our clients and some of our partners' clients, is that people are like, well, I don't want to have to do an extra thing. But you always go to renew your driver's license, or you go somewhere else. They're like, well, I need to see your face and I need you to prove you're who you say by having another form of ID. So we've been using this forever. We're only now applying it to your computer system. So as an example, the applications there, it's only syncing the time from your phone or the device that you're using to your computer. Somebody they accidentally put their username and password into a spam or phishing retrieval service. The hacker externally tries to use it to log in, and then he gets a request, or she gets a request saying, hey, we need this specific number from your authentication device. All of a sudden, they can't log into your email and spam and spoof you anymore from there, because now they need to authenticate it. But to make it less cumbersome and annoying to everyone, you have what's called a trusted device. So that trusted device connecting to a trusted IP, like your home IP from your internet service provider or your work IP, won't ask you to re-authenticate all the time because it knows your IP and your home from home.
Oh, okay. Because the thing that we hear on a regular basis is, are you honestly, every time I log in my computer, I'm going to pull up my phone and then put in my code? Am I going to have to do that every time? You're saying that that's not the case?
No, not with a trusted device. However, if you decide to, you're in Toronto or you're in Mississauga or somewhere, and you decide to drive to Ottawa, and then you log in at an internet cafe or a coffee shop or wherever, and a new IP address pops up, and you can connect, everything's fine. But as soon as you go to access your email on that trusted device, it'll ask you to authenticate again. And at that point, it's just making sure that it's you sitting in that coffee shop wherever in the world to make sure that you do it. So there are a few things that are built into that to make it less cumbersome for everyone. But at the end of the day, it really is there to protect you, and it is worth a little bit of extra pain to log into that as you go along. But that's how this one works.
Okay. Now, the other thing that we're seeing a lot, a trend, lots of people reuse passwords, right? You have a password, you really like it, and you end up putting it in a bunch of different sites, and the challenge is one of those sites gets hacked, and the passwords and the usernames all gets sold, and then people can log into all your other stuff. What we're really starting to push people on more and more is say, you need a password keeper. So whether it's a LastPass or a 1Password, a password keeper will generate much more difficult passwords And because it's a password keeper, you don't have to remember those passwords, but you can have really strong passwords across multiple sites. And then it's a user-friendly kind of way. And executives are generally the worst at this, right?
So what you're saying is my password keeper can't be my notepad on my desk?
No, it can't be a sticky note on your monitor. You can't write it on the back of your hand. You need to have good passwords.
Especially since you're washing your hands so much in COVID anyway. So
yeah, exactly. Like all that sanitizer is going to wash them right off. So let's just circle back. If I look at our concern, if I look at our security questions before we go on to trend number 4, our security questions. Everybody is concerned about malware or viruses. 100% people are concerned about malware or viruses. Then number 2, we have about 67% of people are concerned about sensitive personal or health information being stolen and sold to hackers. 60% of people are worried about phishing attempts or spearing attempts leading to wire fraud. Almost 50% are concerned about confidential company information being stolen and given to competitors or sold. And people are less concerned about embarrassment from defacing a company website. So that's interesting feedback. And it just makes me want, we'll get to the 4th trend, but it just reminds me of something I like to talk about with our clients. Do you know, like, we all have these Word documents and Excel documents, and we have this sort of stuff that's important to our company, sensitive information, might have some stuff with personal health information, might just have something like company secret sauce.
right. Yeah.
Did you know, well, you know this, of course, but a lot of people don't know that if you use the right cloud-based technology and the right security, say you had a Word document that had your secret formula for the caramel secret, and somebody emailed it out and just emailed out that document to the world. All of a sudden the caramel secret is out there, right? But if you have your network set up properly, nobody will be able to open that document. It could be in the hands of thousands, and they'll go and they'll double click to open that document. It's going to check in with security. It's identity-based security, and it's going to say, nope, you do not have access to see the caramel secret.
No permissions.
Yeah. Hey, if you have a VP of sales that leaves your company and goes to another company and takes all those documents with them, even if it's on their computer.
Or a flash drive.
Yeah, or a flash drive, right? And they go to open it, they won't be able to open it because you have the right security in place. But that's not using the 1996 technology of Windows NT.
Fair enough. That's a good point. So
you got to have that modern tech. Okay, so let's keep going. I promised another poll.
Here we go.
So here we go. We've got, what key strategies are you looking at moving forward after your experience in the last 3 months? Choose all that apply.
So, why is bring your own drinks a policy?
Well, in COVID, I think the amount of maybe drinking has gone up a little bit. With all kids at home. Oh, wait, no, that's bring your own device, I think, Jermaine.
There you go. Oops, I was clearly on the other path.
So let's talk about our fourth trend here. You mind if I take this one?
No, go for it. I'll jump in with anything you need.
Right.
This one's close to my heart.
You fire it at any time. Listen, the 4th trend that we're seeing is it's so important right now to move from being reactive to proactive with your IT. Right? You need to go from reactive IT to a proactive strategy that's aligned with your business. Now's not the time to be firefighting. It's not the time to be stocking up on Band-Aids. There's too many people going to Shoppers Drug Mart for other stuff. You don't want to be going there to get a bunch of Band-Aids. It's time to get, we've been talking about the tech strategy we've been talking about over the course of this webinar is a much more proactive way of dealing with things, right? But those are little ideas, but ideas one-off is sort of like playing whack-a-mole, right?
Right. Yeah.
You're not going to have the impact if you just play whack-a-mole.
So if I would jump in here, just to add a little perspective, I would hope that we can really kind of clearly define what we mean by having that proactive versus reactive kind of strategy in place. And what I would want you to do, because I want you to say it with the same passion on your end, is well, what do we really mean, and what did it mean for us when we assisted all of our clients to go to work from home? What did it mean for the people who were super proactive versus reactive? Like, what were those two defining things?
What did it mean? Well, like I think the more proactive people are, the better results they get. The better they're able to work, right?
How easy was their transition home?
Oh, well, if I think back to those first couple weeks when our support desk was being lit up with phone call after phone call, the the folks that had been the most proactive about improvements to their setup and their IT led to the fewest issues, the fewest challenges with transition, and that sort of thing. And really, like, the foundation of a proactive approach has got to be best practices standards, right? You have to have detailed best practices standards, but then you can't just do that alone, right? There's got to be a disciplined process around monthly auditing, review against those best practices standards, and have somebody that's at it and aligning, saying, okay, we're outside of best practices on a security side of things. We got to bring them back in, right? Let's bring it back in. Let's make those little tweaks. Let's make those little improvements, and let's make sure those best practices, as the world changes,
Yeah.
let's make sure we're updating those best practices. Like in the last 3 months, I don't know how many different of our best practices we've updated, but it's definitely in the tens, if not in 100.
Well, the good thing is I actually know what that the answer to that particular question is. We've not only updated, but we've added. So if we took that collectively, we've added and updated around 120 of our 580 standards, which is a huge percent. A huge percent.
Absolutely, and then it gives you the ability, if you have this proactive process that's running based on best practices review and auditing and alignment, you end up be able to deal with all the changes in technology much better.
Right, because they're coming in smaller, more palatable amounts, and it's almost like a health check for your organization on a regular basis. And we tweak things to make sure that it stays healthy, stays fit, and it's more agile, able to maneuver when you need to pivot.
Well, you talked about at the front end, Jermaine, how much time you've been spending with our clients and how many meetings and stuff like that. And a lot of that has been from taking those reviews against best practices standards and updating people's roadmap, right? Yep. And if you don't have a 12-month roadmap, if you don't know where you're going technology-wise, and if you haven't looked at it since the world's changed over the last 3 months, you got to go back and look at that roadmap, look at that budget, look at that outlook, and make sure that you can say and you can feel positively, hey, our IT is not just reactive. We're proactively improving things. We got a plan, we got a budget, we got a roadmap, we've got an outlook, and we have that success rhythm in place, right? And it's really progressing along.
That really does drive the success. Wow.
Can I just make one more point, Jermaine?
Please, go right ahead.
All right. So one other thing I usually tell people is, because a lot of people will look and say, well, yeah, we're pretty proactive about our IT. If you look at the resources, what you're paying for IT support, what you're investing in IT, look at those resources. 75% of your resources should be going through, at least 75% of your resources for IT support should be going into proactive improvement. So think about if 75% or 100% of your resources are just going into band-aiding and fixing problems, you're never going to get better, right? You're losing out on all sorts of opportunity and effectiveness and efficiency and that sort of thing. You should have tons and tons of your resources going into improving things, making changes, that kind of continual process.
So if I were to draw an adage, and you know how I love to draw these parallels, but if I were to draw an adage to this, it would be if I were to change my oil filter before my car broke down, that would be considered me investing and being proactive in maintaining the efficiency of my car, right?
Absolutely.
And that drives across the board for all of your technology that you use. And yes, your car is a part of your technology.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm convinced. I'm convinced.
All right, so I'm gonna pop up our, we've got our contact information there. Most of the folks that are on this call, I think, know one or both of us. I think we have one more poll though. Oh, you know what? Let's just talk about the the feedback we got on the last poll, key strategies. So key strategies that folks are looking forward over the next 3 months. Here's kind of the rundown of the most popular. 88% of people picked staff health and safety when continued social distancing. Makes sense. We got to keep everybody safe. 63% of people picked reducing network equipment hardware costs by migrating more to the cloud. Hey, we're talking about, what's that, trend number 2?
That is trend number 2.
Yeah, let's get stuff in the cloud. Let's use what we have. There were only 13% of people talking about bring your own drink policies. I don't know if that's because we were joking about it.
You guys can reach out to me directly. That's fine. Not.
But there's 56% of people are looking at active ways to reduce overhead operational costs, right? And the impact, we all know the impact on technology. So we're gonna take some questions. I see we've got a few questions. If anybody's any other questions that you want us to address, please put them in the Q&A panel. What I'm gonna do is just before you leave here today, if anybody needs to leave early or not listening to, doesn't want to listen to the Q&A portion of this, please, before you leave, just give us a scale of 1 to 5. How would you rate the value of this webinar? 5 obviously for high and 1 for low. Love to have some feedback from everybody. And if you have any comments, please pass them along. Okay,
Appreciate it.
some questions. Let me start with an easy one. I had to step away for 5 minutes. What was our first key trend?
Yeah, that would be our trend 1, work from anywhere. An office is no longer a space and a place. It's wherever you can work from.
Yeah, so work from anywhere, making sure that we have strategies in place. And we talk through, as part of that, we talk through things like making sure all your applications are hosted and web-based, making sure you have the right gear, laptops instead of desktops, webcams at desks if people are in the office, doing online meetings, making sure you have the right technology set up at home, right? Like we have a lot of people, like we found even in our company, people were using laptops and sitting on their laps and kind of getting scrunched up. And you gotta look, we got countless calls in the early going about people with internet or Wi-Fi issues at home.
Yeah.
Right? And then making sure that you have a phone system that's not tied to your desk, right? Can I call you if you're working at home? Can I call your office, punch in your extension, and get through to you? If I can't do that, you should have a new phone system in your technology strategy.
Definitely. That's an important one.
Okay, what do you want to tackle next? I see problems with setting time limits when working from home. Find I'm working many more hours.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one. I mean, how many times have we had to talk about that one? Oh boy, yeah. I mean, I'm the biggest guilty one here, I would say. And one of the things was exactly that, to run a new pot of coffee at in the morning and then walk from my kitchen with my new cup to my desk really only took me maximum 15 minutes for everything I needed to do. So I took out that whole commute time in the morning. That's the first thing. And then of course, with the parenting and the meeting and doing everything all in the one space, all of a sudden I'm working 5:30 in the morning to 6 p.m. And you're sitting at your same computer, your same desk, and you're like, wait a minute, what? Well, this email can actually wait. I'm sitting in traffic to decompress from work. And that struggle has been all over. So a couple of the key things that we've seen with some of our other partners and peers that we work with is we've had to implement stop gaps. We've had to implement things like, well, what is your work from home strategy? Write down what you want to do, how you're going to make sure that you stay healthy, how are you going to make sure that you eat well, how are you going to make sure that you get the right amount of face time that's not screen time. All right, and that's one of the ways that we've seen a lot of our colleagues and have been battling that. And as an organization ourselves, we've actually worked with our entire team to ensure that everybody had a strong work from home policy. Not only is there work stuff already, but what is your home? Have something to separate out the two, so that you get that fresh air and you don't turn into a fully baked couch potato.
Yeah, I think I just echo that. Like, it's really easy when you're working from home just to work all the time. And one of the things we did for our team, so we just did a bunch of quarterly reviews. We have a performance review system that we use through an HRIS, which another suggestion, if people don't have an HRIS system, something to look at. And we asked everybody to fill out their own work from home plan, right? And just kind of, and the process I think was really good for a lot of people because we had this discussion. So it wasn't just about the technology that they were using, but it was questions like, what kind of family commitments do you have? What's your plan for exercise? What's your plan for eating properly? Right? It's amazing. Like, I know me personally, the impact of getting enough exercise. When COVID first happened, I was getting like zero exercise, and you're just kind of looking at your screen all day long, and it's video call after video call after video call after video call, right? But you get the proper exercise, you start eating properly, you start sleeping properly, and I think as leaders, we've got a responsibility to work with our teams.
Yeah.
And give people some suggestions and show that kind of leadership. Okay, so we have a bunch of questions. Let's keep going on. Jermaine, maybe you want to take this one. I struggle to trust the security of password keepers. How safe are they actually? How do they work?
This one's a near and dear. Password keepers, you have one way to access them that is, again, it's like an authenticator. It's only on your personal device in front of you, and you'd have multi-factor authentication for it. You would punch a code in or a password and then add your thumbprint to it, so that it's secure. And they house it the same way the cloud is built. It is housed in a secure personality or person-based security system similar to those emails and so on. You can't access it if it's outside of that framework. So they are a lot more secure than post-its and notepads, including putting them on a computer and saving it in a Word document. And the whole purpose of them from those companies is that they invest in the additional security to ensure that they're safe. So they are safe. They are definitely safe.
I just wanted to add a funny comment from.
Guessing you saw Ted's comment.
Yeah, my Ted. I'm glad you're on the webinar. Are we working from home or living at work? Well, are we working to live or are we living to work? I think we may not have enough time on this webinar to fully answer that question, but it is a funny question. It's there's a lot of truth to it. Brian gave us a good kudos, which is nice. We really appreciate all the support you provided during our switch over to work from home. Thank you, Brian. We had a question, will you send us a recording of the session after? Yeah, absolutely. So anybody that's registered for this, you'll get the recording out, it'll get emailed out, and it will live on the Zoom system for the foreseeable future. And I think we've got time for maybe one more. How expensive are these password keeper programs? Jermaine, what do you?
Yeah, they're relatively inexpensive. It's no more than probably few bucks a month. Realistically, there isn't a big price variation among them, but yeah, you're not going to spend more than maybe maximum $8 or $10 a month on them. Yeah.
All right. So we're almost at the end of our hour. We just wanted to take a minute, just thank everybody for joining. As we mentioned, this webinar has been recorded, so it will live on. If you wanted to share it with anybody else in your companies or friends, colleagues, that sort of stuff, we'll email the link to everybody that's on. So thank you very much for joining today, Jermaine. You were
Thank you very
fantastic.
much. Hey, this is fun. We should do it again.
We definitely should. Have a great day, everybody.
Have a good day, everybody. Thanks again. Bye-bye.